Hi, this is Kevin Trainer, and welcome to my introductory lecture for uh, INFOST 350, Section 201. INFOST 350 is Introduction to Application Development with Python 3, sort of implied. Um, so this is my online course. And what I try to do is to record the kind of lecture that, or, kind of introduction and tour of the course that I would do in person if we were an on campus, face to face course. So here goes. Um, we're looking at right now is my view of the Canvas page. Guess I could go to the student view. That'd be a little bit better. Let's try that. Let's see what the student view looks like. This is our Canvas main page. So you log into our course, you go to home. They have the announcements. I use this to keep in touch with you. Okay. Typically, if there's a change in the schedule or I've posted additional content or something like that, I will post an announcement here. Okay, it's my understanding that you've set up your a Canvas configuration such that it appears here, and you also get an email. I know that I get emails when other instructors post on these things. So that's what I'm expecting for you. Okay. And then down here, we have some information about the course. We have a list of assignments in chronological order. And eventually, we're going to have a third section in here where at an appropriate time after the due date on your coding assignments, which will be weekly assignments, a couple of days after that, we're going to post my solutions to those assignments. Okay. Those are so you can compare your work to them. And also, at the end of the week, I'm going to be holding an optional online lab session. And those that'll serve as a time when you can, um, if you don't really see why the official solution is different from yours, or you can't figure out why yours isn't working, you can come to the online lab and we can discuss it. And one, it's a great way to learn, and two, I think we have fun while we're there. So really consider doing that for sure. Okay. So let's look up at the course information. Let's see. We've got a page with general course information. I'm Kevin Trainer. I'm the instructor. We do have a TA for the course, Brian Hartling. This is section 201 in the spring of 2020. It's an online course. And now the next page has information on how to contact us. And we do things a little differently in my courses. We have another way to keep in touch with each other than email. Okay, and really apart from Canvas email. So regular email or Canvas email are not what we use. What we do use is we have a service desk. It's really a help desk. And I've actually set up one for each of my courses. Okay, and there's a link here to the service desk project for this course. And if you click on it, you will go to the page for the service desk for our course. Um, if you are a person who's already worked on one of my courses and you're known to the service desk app, which is implemented with a product called Jira Service Desk, then you're just going to arrive on this page. Okay. If it doesn't know you, it's going to give you a login page. Okay. In which case, you're going to have to uh, provide it with uh, information to register with the server. Now, how would you know how to do that? Well, I have for you back here on the page that we came from. Let's go back to the page that we came from. I have another link to the Jira Service Desk introduction. Okay, and this has general information, tips on how to get started, uh, particular tips if you're having problem communicating with the server with email. There's another link for a separate page that tells you how to solve email problems. Okay. And down at the very bottom is a list of the service desk um, projects for the courses I'm currently teaching. I teach at two universities. I teach full-time at UWM, where you are, and I teach part-time at the University of Illinois in Champaign, which are these courses down here. Okay, so that's essentially the help page for the service desk. Okay, and if in fact you go to the service desk, let's go back to where I was here. Uh, what you essentially do is you pick a reason why you need help. Okay. And it could be any of the reasons that I have here. These are kind of popular things, or I have an other issue. So you could click on other issue, for instance. And once it knows who you are, it's going to assume that you're raising the request. And what you need to do is to type in a summary. It typically something that will help us understand your request. These requests are available both to Brian Hartling and to me because we both work on the work on this course. Okay, so there are some things that I always deal with, and there are quite a few things that he's the main person to deal with. But you have a summary, which is a subject line, and a description. Okay, and essentially you can describe your problem here, and you can attach files. Okay, one of the really interesting things is that we're going to be using for our Python work. We're going to be using a product called PyCharm. And in PyCharm, you have projects. Each little piece of work that you do is a new project. So each assignment that we're going to hand in is going to be a PyCharm project. And one of the things you can do if you're really getting symptoms you can't understand and you want some help, is you can just take your project directory and you can zip it up and you can drop it right on here. And that gives us the possibility of being able to unzip it and actually run the project just like you. Okay? So one of the things that we find is that some people want to just give us a snippet of the code that's not working, or they want to give us maybe the whole program that they're having some kind of issue with. And it turns out that our preference actually is to be working with the same thing that you are, which is you you will be working with your PyCharm project. And if you want us to take a look at your code and give you some pointers about how you might get out of the trouble that you're currently in, zip up the whole project and plop it in here as an attachment. And it really speeds up our ability to respond to your questions. And then you click on create, and away it goes. Okay. We monitor this pretty much every day. And we get all kinds of questions. We get questions about what did we mean by some kind of assignment. We get questions about from people who are working on a programming assignment and they're stuck. We get questions about all kinds of things. And one of the nice things about the system that we like is that we can follow up on a particular issue or ticket, as they're often called in these kinds of help desk kinds of systems. And we can follow up with you until it gets resolved. Okay, so for us, much better than email alone. Okay, so that's the service desk, and we got there by going through contact information. Um, I included my phone number here, and I'm certainly willing to help students using either text or voice calls over the phone, provided that you've done a good job of trying to do the help desk route. Okay, sometimes you just get to a point where you need to talk to a person. So there's my number. Required texts. Okay, so the required texts are the Zell book, uh, Python Programming Introduction to Computer Science, third edition. Um, that's a paperback book to be bought wherever you want to buy it. I was a little bit late um, getting the information to the virtual bookstore, but they have this information now, and you can order it through them. Okay, or you can go to a lot of places. You can go to Amazon, you can go to the publisher, you can go to, this is a very popular book and a good book. The second book is not listed at the bookstore because I prefer that you use the free version, the electronic version. If we click here, we'll go through to it. So the author, Charles Severance, who teaches I think at the iSchool at Michigan, he's been very generous, and although he has a printed book, he's got several versions, several electronic versions of the same book, and you're welcome to use them. And that's what most people do. Okay, the price point is very attractive at free. Okay. Um, we're going to have readings out of both books, so you definitely want to have them both. Okay, and again, the the electronic version of the Severance book seems to work for most people. Okay, and let's see, the course syllabus comes next, and there's a link here. You can open it in a browser window. Okay, so you have that. That's the next place to go. We'll talk through that in a couple of minutes. And then the next link that we have is for the weekly schedule. Now let's click through on that and go to that. The weekly schedule is my web application that presents the schedule for our course. And it really is the authoritative place to go to answer the question, what are we doing this week? And what's due this week? What do I have to read? What do I have to listen to? What do I have to hand in? Okay. So I'm just going to walk you through the schedule. This would be a good time to do it. Okay. So when you're on the index page, the numbers of the weeks are the links to the weekly schedule pages. Okay. So week one, next week, I'm recording this on Friday morning, so our week start, our semester is going to start next Tuesday. Okay, and typically for an online course like yourselves, most of the information that you're going to need is in this box called Weekly Assignments Deadline. Okay, so the week typically runs from very early Monday morning to very late Sunday night. Okay, so the deadlines are at 11:55 p.m. on Sunday night. And typically what you'll find here is a list of the topics that we're covering for the week, readings that you're supposed to do, recordings that you're supposed to play. Okay. If in fact there's a recording that you're supposed to play and it's not available yet, you'll see an entry like the one that we see here for review syllabus and weekly schedule. This is a lecture that I'm recording right now, and when I post it, instead of this promise to have it up by next Tuesday, hopefully I'll have it up this afternoon, instead of that, you'll have a link to it. There's a tutorial listed before that, and it's fairly short, and I'd like you to play it. It's tips on how to play my YouTube videos. Most people get more value from the videos if they can control the speed of playback. And I go through that feature and how to do it, and I kind of talk about why I speak at the pace that I do, and why you might want to speed that up, and how you might want to vary that over a particular recording. So please play that one if you play nothing else, and then because there's a lot of videos to play. We don't have a whole lot of class participation, but we do have two mandatory posts. There's one in week one called Introduce Yourself, and you can read the instructions here. And you'll go to the discussions part of Canvas, and you'll find the place to post. Okay. We're looking to learn about you and for your classmates to learn about you. We're looking for people to not only post, but to respond to some posts from their classmates. Okay. There's another opportunity to post in week 10, and that has to do with where are you going to go with Python when you're done with the course? Okay. There's a lot of stuff that you can do that you can go explore, projects that you can work on to keep sharp, and we won't be thinking about that. But we don't want to, you don't have to think about it too hard until you get a little bit more than halfway through the course. So there'll be another one of these in week 10. Um, Sometimes we have more things to hand in that are not part of the weekly assignments per se. So we want to segregate them, and they're usually segregated as an additional deadline. This is at the same end of Sunday time. And we want you to set up the computing. So we want you to use your own computer, either a laptop, which is probably the most convenient, or a desktop. And we want you to install a product called Anaconda and a product called PyCharm Professional. And we've got some links here to help you. We've got a tutorial for people who are using Windows 10, a tutorial who are people who are using Mac OS. You can do this on a Linux PC, but we're not going to be able to support you to the same extent that we will on Windows and Mac OS. And quite frankly, in the past, people who have been sort of tech savvy enough to be using a Linux PC are usually able to support themselves. But that's that. So that's the first week. Now, I skipped over a very important part of our week, which is on Sunday mornings. For my online courses, I have these things called online labs. Okay, and this is a 1 hour time. Yours is late in the morning. They start at 9 a.m. And this one is at 11 a.m. So you got lots of time to sleep compared to people on a couple of my other courses. And what do? Well, we meet on Zoom, okay? And Zoom, we have a link to the Zoom room that we're going to be using right here, this link. And Zoom is an online meeting room, webinar, discussion facility. We're going to use it as a discussion facility, okay? And I'm going to cancel this one because the meeting isn't up yet. But of course, when you come to it, I should be there, okay? So I forget how I did this. Oh, here we are. Weekly assignments deadline, additional meeting, right? So, why do you come here? Okay. You come here because you have a particular problem. You're working on the assignment. You're stuck. This is a convenient time to go get help in person, online. Okay. I typically help people in the order that they show up. So it's kind of first come, first serve. We're all in the room at the same time. Quite often, while I'm helping one person, another person sees the answer to their problem. Okay, so I try to keep track of who came first, and I'll say, Mary, I think that you were next. And Mary will say, you know what? I had the same problem that the last person had, and I think I'm good. I'm just going to listen some more. So some of the people who come have an actual problem or question in hand. Other people just kind of see what's going on, right? It's a great way to learn. And typically within the hour, we get through everybody who's stuck on something. And of course, we're all working on the same assignments. So it's not unlikely we get stuck in the same places. Now, we're a creative sort, so we get stuck all kinds of places. Uh, so um, it's usually fun. I especially like this because with this asynchronous online format that we have at UWM, I don't get much opportunity to speak to online students. And I'd love to get to know you, and I'd like to help, right? Now, the fact is that not everybody can make this day and time. There would be some people who have to go to church or some other kind of a faith related thing that day, and they don't really have the latitude to come. There'll be some people who are at work then on that day. Okay, um, so uh, we we generally try to help people in person on in this format. Um, if you're not able to make this and you have a problem, there are two other things you can do. One is just to put a problem, open up a ticket on the service desk, right? We help a lot of people on the service desk, and you would think it would be hard to do, but we're pretty good at it. You know, we'll say things like, take a look at your line 45, and you're trying to do, you know, X, and you really need to do Y. And a lot of times that's all somebody needs is to move on. There are times when we will set up individual sessions online using Zoom. The other thing, and this is available to everybody in the online course. I'm teaching two sections, one online section, one on campus. Okay. One of the things that our TA, Brian Hartling, does is he's available during the tutoring times at in the lounge across from the SOAS office on the third floor of Northwest Quad B. And um, once we get the semester underway, he'll be picking the days and the time. It probably has to do with when he has a class. He's in the MSIS program. But it'll be 2 days. And it'll be, I think, for something close to 2 hours in each of those days. And again, you come in first come, first serve. Um, you can come in if you're on the on-campus class. You can come in if you're on the online class. And we kind of help people the same way. I mean, uh, sometimes, you know, the next person in line sees the solution that worked for the person ahead of them, and they're done too, right? So, and again, we'd love to meet you, and we, we have a lot of fun doing this. So the weekly lab sessions I run, um, and they'll be from 11 to 12 on Sunday mornings. And the tutoring sessions Brian runs, and exactly what days and times they're on, we'll know soon, and we'll publish them before they start. Okay? All right, so let's just kind of go through the schedule. In the next week, we start to work. We've got the computers set up. So now we're going to do chapters 1 and 2, and our main text, which is the Zell text. Okay. Uh, you'll notice that I've recorded a lecture for each of the I've recorded a lecture for each of the chapters. Sometimes the chapters are long, so they're divided into parts. I see there's a welcome lecture part 2. That'll probably be gone. That was from last semester. Okay. Um, other resources. Other resources typically includes um, a copy of the slides that I use during the lectures. So these are PDFs of the slide decks. You can look through them. This is a link, this code examples from the ZEL 3E chapters. This is a link to code that comes with the textbook, so it made it easy for you to download. Okay. And then because we cover 2 chapters, we've got 2 coding assignments. Okay. So what's the first coding assignment? Well, it has to do with chapter 1, and if you click on the instructions, you get the instructions. Okay, now I'm going to point out we don't do the exercise problems that are at the end of the chapter. Why don't we do those? Well, because the author publishes the solutions. Okay, and also they're more math heavy than I really like. So I've put together a custom set of exercises that kind of parallel the exercises that are in the back of chapter, but I think are more kind of realistic in terms of what we want to do. Okay, who we are and what our goals are in terms of learning and using Python. Okay, and there's pretty good instructions here about what to do. Okay, so each coding assignment has instructions. Okay, um, there's a tutorial here about how to complete the assignments and submit the work. There's another tutorial on Python plumbing, uh, which is how all the parts of a Python program are situated and how they connect to each other. Um, and then well, I have a tutorial here, a part 1 and a part 2. And generally, I have a tutorial that corresponds to each exercise that you have to do. Now, I'm not going to show you how to do it, but I am going to show you how to do something like it. Okay, so the relationship between the tutorials that I do for the coding assignments and then the exercise that you do is it should use the same skills, but you're not going to be able to just copy. Okay, you'll be able to emulate what I did in doing yours. Okay. We have a grading rubric for each assignment. So we're going to show that. Okay. And this shows the points that you get for these things. Okay. And what I'm looking for. Now, I want to tell you that there's a deal that I have for grading on homework assignments, and that says that if you do a good faith effort on all parts of the assignment and you hand it in on time, you'll get 75 points. Okay. And if you hand it in on time and you hand in a properly formatted and named file, which you would think would be easy for people to do, but turns out it's not, you get another 10 points. So if you follow the directions and make a good faith effort on all parts and hand it in on time, you'll get a minimum score of 85. Now, why do we do this? Well, I do this because we're going to be showing you the solutions. And having tried to do it by yourself before you see the solution, that's where all the learning goes on. If you wait till you've seen the solution, um, it's obvious. Okay. So you've got to get good at solving these problems on your own, well, with a little bit of help from having seen a tutorial on a similar problem. But if in fact you wait and see what the official solution is before you try to do yours, you're not going to really build the skills that I want you to build. So that's why there's a lot of incentives to try it on your own. Okay. And that's why I have the deal that I have for this. Okay, so what were chapters 1 and 2 about? Chapters 1 and 2, chapter 1 was about computers and programs, and chapter 2 is about writing simple programs. So I think these fit very well into 1 week. Now, um, I've got two textbooks here. So the Severance, I'm sorry, yeah, no, hang on. The Zell textbook is our main textbook. Okay. We use the Severance textbook for two reasons. One is if you look at the optional readings, I always point you to where the equivalent material is in the Severance book. And he and Zell are two different authors that I mean, they talk about the same stuff, and I think they're both good. But there may be people, especially people who are new to programming, who might go through the Zell stuff and think, I'm not sure I quite get it. I want to read something else. Well, I'm pointing you to the stuff in the Severance book. There are two chapters that we do where the main work we're going to do is in the Severance book. Um, chapter There's a chapter on regular expressions, which are not covered in the Zell book, so we do that out of the Severance book. And there's a chapter on how to write custom classes, which I think he does better than the Zell book, so we use that. But for all the other chapters, the main work is in the Zell book. And if you're doing well and you're happy, then you can leave the Severance alone. But if you want another source, go look at the Severance book. Okay? Except for the two chapters where I make it clear that the work in the Severance book is the main work. Okay? This is a good time to talk about the relationship between the recorded lectures and the readings. Okay? Um, the recorded lectures cover the same material that's in the readings, and this is pretty typical of an undergraduate course. Um, you get two ways to learn it. Now, I have some commentary that I've added uh, to the lecture that I think adds some value. Okay. Uh, in some cases, I'll cover some supplemental material. Okay, but don't be surprised to find that they're covering essentially the same thing. And whereas I mark them both as required, I'm kind of expecting you to manage your time and your use of the resources such that it really works for you. Okay, I think you'll dial into exactly which of the resources you want to emphasize. Okay. So that's it. So this is week 2. We're covering computers and programs and writing simple programs. Let's see where we go. We go on. We click the next button, so we're in week 3. We're covering chapter 3, which is computing with numbers. Week 4, we're covering Chapter 5. We skip over Chapter 4. Chapter 4 in the Zell book is oh, it has to do with features that we don't really use. It has to use with graphical user interface features that we don't use, and it's pretty math heavy. It's very um, it's very geometry heavy. Okay, so we skip over 4, we go to 5. 5 is a super chapter. Okay, so this is a lot. Um, the good news is we talk about strings, lists, and files all in the same chapter, and they're all sequences, so they all belong together. But it's a lot to get your head around in a single chapter, so leave a lot of time for this week. Okay, so that's week 4. Let's look at week 5. In week 5, uh, we've got just some coverage of some object-oriented topics that we skipped in week 4. I'm sorry, that we skipped when we skipped chapter 4. So things like what are programming objects and what's the difference between mutable and immutable objects. We deal with those here. We talk about we cover chapter 6, defining functions. Functions are a really important construct in Python, so this is a good chapter with a lot of meat. Week 6, we go on to chapter 7 in Zell, decision structures, including things like if-else. Okay. Now, here's a situation where there's a lot of deviation between the reading and the recorded lecture. So for sure, I think you ought to make sure that you play the recorded lecture. I created a whole supplemental set of exercises and all that kind of stuff. So that's week 6. Week 7, we're covering chapter 8, loop structures and Booleans, another really important part of the Python language. Kind of a fun chapter. Week 8, we're covering data collections. That's chapter 11 from the Zell book. At this point, you've already been introduced to Python lists from chapter 5 and the work we've been doing since this. And we go on to also learn about Python dictionaries in this chapter and do some practicing with them both. Okay. Week 9 is our spring break, spring recess. Okay, so we don't have work scheduled during that week. Okay, now something to see here is if we go back to the previous week, we do have an online lab on Sunday. Now, I guess officially people are already out for their break. Okay, but there are people who are going to want to start to work on things like their final project over the break. So I wanted to have the lab session before the bulk of the break days. So then the break week doesn't have a lab session. Okay, so if you want some help for the break week, come on Sunday, March the 15th. Okay. So that's that. Week 10, we go over to the Severance book and we use Severance Chapter 11 regular expressions. Regular expressions are not covered in the Zell book. They're a very important feature of a lot of programming languages. You may have already seen them, but we cover them well here. And again, I think it's a fun chapter. Uh, Week 11, we come back and do Chapter 9 from the Zell book. And Chapter 9 is about two different things. One is they talk about how to use Python construct to do simulation, probabilistic things like, oh, simulating who wins rolls of the dice or who wins at a game of cards and that kind of stuff. So we learn those kind of features. But the main thing that we talk about here is we talk about the design of programs. Up until this part, our programs have been pretty short. Okay, and in this we design and we implement a longer program. So it's fun work to do, and it's certainly a skill that you need to build if uh, you're going to create some things that have some real substance and impact. Week 12 is going to be the last week in which we cover new material. We're going to cover Chapter 14 from the Severance book, Object-Oriented Programming. And we're going to learn how to design and implement a custom Python class. Now, this really turns you into a first-class object-oriented programmer. It can be challenging, but it's very rewarding. And people who have the patience to get through this always do well. So that's what we're covering here. So what happens after week 12? Well, after week 12, we start working on our final project. Okay. Now, where is the final project? When's the final project due? I get this question from time to time. Well, the final project is due in the last week of the course. So if you want to see when it's due and what the details are, well, click on the index and go to week 16. That's really the final week of the course. And here's the final project. So we have instructions, quite lengthy instructions. Okay. We have starter files, a cheat sheet back from when we learned how to create custom Python classes. A tutorial video. In this one, this isn't a tutorial where I do parallel exercise. This is one where I kind of walk you through the whole project that you're doing and try to put it into context and give you some coaching. There's a grading rubric. There are tutorials on how to read a grading rubric for a final assignment and how to read the feedback that you get back from a final assignment. Okay, so this week 16, and if we go back week 15, and if we go back week 14, and if we go back week 13, these are all times when we're going to work on the final project. Okay. Now, if you start the final project early enough, 4 weeks should be more time than you'll ever need to do it. If you wait till the final week to do it, you'll barely get done. Okay. The final project is like a super homework. It's like a super coding assignment. So it has, it looks like a coding assignment in one of the big weeks. except it pulls everything together and it's challenging. And again, it's just not 1 week worth of work. Is it 4 weeks worth of work? No, I don't think it is. It's probably more like 2 weeks worth of work, 2 weeks worth of homework. Okay, 2.1 weeks of homework. It's not 4 weeks of homework. So what I've done is I front loaded the course so that you guys will start on it early enough to get it done. We offer the same kind of help during the final project phase that we offer during the rest of the course. So even if you have some difficulty, you ought to be able to get this done, and that's what we're hoping for. Okay, what else should we look at about the course? Let's just take a look at the syllabus and see if it says anything else that I didn't cover when I was going through the weekly schedule. Again, the weekly schedule is the go-to place for what's due, what we're covering, what are the resources, what are the links to the resources, all that stuff. Let's see, the beginning of the syllabus, not too surprising, INFOST 350-201. I'm the instructor, Brian Hartling's the TA. There's a description of how to contact us. There's the offer that if you can't come to online lab, that you may want to ask for an individual meeting, and you can do that through the help desk. There's a description of our online lab sessions from 11 to 12 on Sunday mornings. Okay. I don't officially describe the tutoring, which is offered by Brian on the weekdays at SOAS, because it's not an official part of this course, but it really is a resource available to you, even though you're in an online course and you you may live far away. Uh, it's possibly possible for you to drop by and take advantage of uh, the tutoring that goes on at SOAS. Again, it'll be 2 different days a week. I think last semester Brian was there on Mondays and Wednesdays in the late morning, early afternoon, something like that. But it's going to depend upon uh, his classes and a number of other things. And again, when we get the schedule for tutoring, we will publish it. Um, so there's a lot of help available for this course. Okay. And that's because we have a wide variety of people taking the course in how much programming they've already done. Some people have done quite a bit. Some people have done absolutely zero. Okay. There's a lot of help available. We want you to take advantage of it. This is not the kind of course where if you don't get it the first time on your own, you've got a problem. Uh, if you don't get it the first time on your own, you have an opportunity. There are plenty of help opportunities that we are expecting you to take advantage of. There's a course descriptions, the prereqs. Let's see the course outcomes. We want you to explain fundamental programming concepts. We want you to be able to create a working application with logic and to conduct basic tasks using a programming language. And we'd like you to be able to verbally discuss and explain code and application logic to other students. Again, that should work pretty well. Here's a list of the learning outcomes from the program that we cover. We cover 1 and 3. The one for design, implement, evaluate, and the one for communicate effectively. Let's see. Instructional methods, we've got reading, recorded lectures and tutorials, text-based online discussion via, it says D2L forums, but really Canvas forums. Um, online labs using Zoom, and a lot of coding and testing Python programs. Um, how much time this is going to take you is going to depend upon how fast of a programmer you are and you become. Some people are faster programmers than others. I'm sort of a midland programmer. I'm very deliberate. I like to think about what I'm doing before I do it. I'm not the fastest programmer. Of course, I think I'm the best programmer, but I'm definitely not the fastest. So the number of hours this is going to take you is going to vary, and it may vary throughout the semester. And you just have to put the time in. The required text by the Zell text. Uh, use the free version of the severance text. Okay. Technology requirements. The ideal platform for you to work on is a laptop. Why is it ideal? Well, if you want to come in for tutoring, you can bring your computer with you. Okay. Now, not everybody has a laptop. All right. That's okay. All right. But you should, the ideal environment is some kind of a laptop, either with Windows 10 or with Mac OS. If you have to use a desktop, well, use a desktop. We're going to be using two products that are free to us. One is called Anaconda, and it's a platform that controls a version of Python modules that we're going to be using. Does it very effectively. This is a very popular product in data science. And we're going to be using PyCharm Professional, which is actually the paid version of PyCharm. But it's what I use in all my classes, and we're entitled to a free copy because we're associated with the university. There's a link here to the schedule, right? So that's how you get to the weekly schedule. There are links in several places, including there. Okay, well, got back there. There's the schedule. The readings. Um, Again, there are two sets of readings: the required ones and the optional ones. The optional ones are the second expression of the same thing. Really offer here for people who are maybe new to programming and would just like to hear it explained in a different way. Um, Lecture videos. A lot of overlap between the readings in the severance books and the lecture videos, although I do cover more things in the videos in terms of what I comment in. And especially, I think it's in chapter 7, I come up with a whole different set of examples that I use. And you definitely want to listen to that one. In the tutorial videos, this is a case for, this is an opportunity for you to see me solve hands-on a problem like you're going to do in your homework exercise. Okay, it's not the same program, but it's suspiciously similar. Okay, you can take a lot of inspiration from my code, and I'm expecting you to take a lot of inspiration from my from my method and my kind of programming practices that I show you as I go along. The coding assignments, we have them every week. Um, uh, some weeks we're covering, say, 2 chapters, so we've got more work to do. Um, so there's that can be pretty challenging. You want to start them early in the week so that if you're going to have trouble, you have it early and get the chance for help. Um, in terms of the grading deal, I've discussed that already. If you on the this is not for the final project, but this is the grading deal for the coding assignments. If you turn in your work on time and you make a good faith effort, you demonstrate a good faith effort on all parts of the assignment, and you follow the directions for how to submit the file, how to format the file, how to set up a PyCharm project, and all that kind of stuff. If you're a good doobie and you follow directions and you turn it in on time and you do make a good faith effort on all parts, the lowest grade that you can get is an 85. If you turn it in late, the highest grade that you can get is an 84. So you definitely want to do everything on time. And the idea here is that we're going to be publishing the official solutions usually a couple days after the deadline for handing it in, and then I'll be available to discuss the official solutions and any questions you have about them or your work in the next online lab. Okay, so you've got that. Um, so I want you to be able to figure out what grade you got on the basis of uh, the official solutions and some feedback that you might get in the online lab. Self-evaluation of your work in this field is critical. I mean, you can't, once you get on the job, you can't go to your users and say, is this right? Okay. Now, could you show it to them and say, I think this is all working fine. I'd like your feedback. Yeah. But you need an opinion about how well you do. Okay. You don't want to be a person who's saying, well, I think I have it. Why don't you look at it and see if you think it works? I mean, you want to be a people. You definitely want to be a people. You want to be a person who the users rely on to do a good job of coding and testing and kind of understanding how well their work uh, is going. So uh, we are going to grade your work within about 2 weeks, hopefully faster than that in some cases. But you shouldn't be surprised when you get the feedback. Okay, you should already know because you should be developing these self-evaluation skills. There's some stuff in here that describes the point deal on coding assignments in a little more specificity. Participation, you've got 2 forum posts to post and to respond to other people on. You've got one for the first week where you introduce yourself, and one for week 10 where you're going to talk about your next steps that you're considering as a programmer, as a Python person. I see here that there's an error. So we say for each participation exercise, a maximum of 50 points may be earned. I've changed that. I didn't update this. I really like to gear every assignment to 100 points. So I changed that and I haven't updated this. So I've got to fix this. Okay, so you get up to 100 points for each of those posts, and of course, those are going to be averaged. The final project I talked about already. It's kind of like a really big homework assignment. Okay, uh, the exercises are all solving one set of problems, more so than in a typical homework assignment. Um, it's going to be different in that you're not going to get uh, a tutorial to follow for each of the parts. There are 4 parts of it. Uh, a lot of our homework exercises have 4 exercises, so that shouldn't be too surprising. But again, typically this I think would be weighted as just a little bit more than 2 homework assignments. And we've given you 4 weeks to work on it. So you better you better get going when we tell you to start. You should do just fine. We've got some stuff about grading here. We really want you to get things in on time, so there's a penalty for late assignments. We will entertain requests for extensions that relate to well, the typical reasons why someone would give you an extension here at the university. Uh, there are times when you might look at the grade book and see that something hasn't been graded, or you think there was some kind of a grading error. There's a way to use the help desk to ask for a regrading. Um, here are the weights of the parts of the course. So the coding assignments are worth 60% of the grade. So you'll be getting them as you're going along. The final project is worth 35%. That's a little bit big for some people. They're not used to having the final hand in being so big. But we're going to be working on it a long time, and there's a lot of help for it. Participation from the forum posts is going to be 5% of the grade. That all adds up to 100. The grading scale is pretty standard. I got this from one of my colleagues when I started 6 years ago. And the UWM and SOS academic policies is pretty standard as well. Now, on one hand, if you've already read a syllabus like this and you already understand all these sections, well, it's pretty straightforward and it's the same. On the other hand, these are all very important issues. Uh, Things like help available for differently able students, uh, allowance for religious observances, students called to active military duty, incompletes. I just want to point out it's very hard to get an incomplete grade in a course in at UWM. I think you have completed something like 75% of the work and have a certain grade point average. So uh, these are hard to get, not easy to get. Discriminatory conduct. We want this to be a safe place. Okay. Uh, Academic misconduct. We want you to do and hand in your own work, although we have some allowances for collaboration. Um, it's very important that you hand in your own work. And complaints and grade appeals and all of this. So, what I would say is, with respect to this last part, it's all very important stuff. If you understand it all already, well, great. If not, please explore the links here. And also know that I'm available to help you um, uh, if you need some help with any of these important things. And if I can't help you directly, I will point you on to the right place. Okay, so I'm coming to the end of my introductory lecture. I just want to say that to me this is a really fun course. Um, Programming has always been a lot of fun for me. It's a place where we can learn to design things and to build things, um, things that are a big help, things that can be fun and entertaining. Uh, this is important. This is an important skill to have in this uh, information society and economy that we live in. And most of all, we can have fun doing this. I always have fun doing this, and I try to pass that on to my students, and I think I succeed. So I think you have that to look forward to. So that's it for this introductory lecture. I'm going to say goodbye until next time. Bye bye.